It's simple. We risk losing the consent of the British people. That's why we have to do things differently.
With climate change, the idea that you can stop the power of the sun or volcanoes is simply ludicrous.
That's what climate change is about. It is literally, not figuratively, a clear and present danger.
If unprecedented changes are not made and made soon, there will be irreversible damage to the planet.
Zero Carbonista.
Hello and welcome to Zero Carbonista Series 5, Just Stop the Tories. Spoiler alert, they've been stopped. I'm Ian Collins, and this is your go-to number one environment-based podcast. If it's green, it is in. And it's interesting, Dale, that last week, which was the first episode we did post-election, we talked a lot about the speed with which Labour are implementing policy. Really no messing around, straight out the traps at 100 miles an hour. And of course, that accelerated again this week with the Crown Estate announcement and all that's happening with offshore wind.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I just want to say you made me think that the Tories have not just been stopped, they've been sentenced to 5 years in opposition, which I find quite ironic given what's happening with Just Stop Oil.
Yeah, well, yes, they've been sentenced to as long as the campaigners have. So maybe there is some karma after
There's
all.
some karma there. Anyway, Labour's big announcement, Great British Energy is often in the news. Yesterday it was announced we'll partner with the Crown Estates. They will develop offshore projects together, take them to the planning stage. Super sensible. There's a lot of value in taking basically a piece of seabed to a place where it's got planning consent for an offshore wind farm. That now will belong to the public. I think that's a brilliant thing. I think they said, but I hope they will go further and build those offshore wind farms themselves as a nation so that we own the complete value chain. And I spent all day yesterday doing media interviews about this, which was, fun. But there's one thing of particular note I wanted to talk about in the middle of all of that. Carla Denyer, Green leader, was in one of the interviews, and she kind of surprised me with the things she said.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the Greens, I mean, I don't want to say they've had their fox shot, but I think there's a bit of grumpiness over there at Green HQ in that everything they were asking for pretty much is sort of happening, but under a Labour government.
Yeah, I mean, they've had their fox shot, roasted and eaten, perhaps. They don't like it. I mean, I keep bumping into Green peers, Green candidates, Green Party supporters and stuff like that. And I can't believe how kind of blinkered they are. I'm having this constant argument. We have a Green government. And they say, oh, no, we don't. And I'm like, but we do. And if you look at the Green manifesto and you compare it to the Labour manifesto on green issues, there's not a lot of difference. So I'd say maybe just a little bit more realism in the Labour one, but they're doing big, bold things. And yesterday, Carla Denyer starts out by saying a couple of incredible things. The first thing was that it doesn't matter about getting to 100% green electricity on the grid if we don't stop using oil and gas, if we don't turn off the North Sea. And I'm like, hang on a second. Of course it matters. And actually, that's how we make the transition. The more green energy we put on the grid, the less fossil fuels. It's the transition itself by definition, which she talked about us needing to make. And that seemed like really, really poor thinking to me. And then she went on to say that Labour were issuing licenses for new oil and gas. And I'm like, no, they're not. That's a crazy thing to say. And then she said something about the 28 billion versus the 8 billion. And it was a kind of apples and pears kind of comparison. And it just made me think that she was trying really hard to have a point to make. But she didn't really have a point to make because Labour are doing all the right things.
What's interesting, of course, central to everything is energy. That is kind of front and centre. And the clue for the Greens should be in the Great British Energy Company, offshore wind, an incredible pool of money to make this happen. It couldn't be more unequivocal, I would suggest. I mean, that is absolutely what the Green Party would have argued for.
Oh, absolutely. I think it couldn't have been better. We've also got a law enshrining energy independence, into our laws. I mean, an incredible concept. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised. What the Green Party seem to be doing right now is politicking. Keep saying, look, we're going to hold Labour to account. They're not going far enough and blah, blah, blah. And I just find it stunning. I'm kind of almost speechless. I'm like, what planet are you guys on? But I think it's a brilliant example, actually, of party before country, the opposite of what Keir Starmer's doing.
Absolutely. We're going to reach a stage in the next series of this, Dale, where you'll be patting the Tories on the back saying they get it, but the Greens, they got no idea what's going on.
Do you know what? I think Rishi Sunak is going to get it. I think now that the pressure is off of leading that shit show of a party of his and running the country so badly, but being unable to do probably what he knew was the sensible stuff to do, I think we'll see a different Rishi Sunak. But I don't want to dwell on that. One more thing. In my interviews, I did an interview with Sophie Ridge. She made me really laugh out loud. In the middle of the interview, she said to me, you know, you're this big green campaigner and all that kind of stuff, and now you're advocating for house building and economic growth. She said to me, have you gone soft?
Yeah, I mean, no one ever said you can't build houses, right?
That's right. That's to fundamentally misunderstand what being green is about. In my view, anyway, you know, my version of it is, yes, we have to build stuff. It's what we build, where we build, and how we build it that matters. Not this kind of world of lentils and sackcloth where we say we can't have any growth, we can't build anything, that kind of stuff. But that's a bit of a stereotype. But a lot of people hold on to that.
Yeah, maybe Sophie's going to join the Green Party. I don't know. Maybe that's what could be a little taste of things to come. Maybe
it's all great fun. And what a different world we're in. Listen to this conversation we're having. I mean, it's barely 3 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks today, actually, that Labour took power, became the government.
Yeah, just 3 weeks.
And, you know, it's like the grown-ups are in charge of the country. Everything, it's a completely different outlook. It's like being in a dream. I hope that I don't wake up and find that it was all a dream.
And as if it needed hammering home, during that 3 weeks, planet Earth has also experienced its hottest day on record.
Yeah. I tell you what was really interesting to me about this. Monday was the hottest day on record. But the hottest day before that was Sunday, the day before.
That's right. Well, yeah. Okay. Some might say they're getting closer together, these hot days.
Yeah. So listen to the rest of this. Said the previous hottest day was a year before that. The previous hottest day before that was 16 years before that. So we've gone from a 16-year gap to a 1 year gap to a 1 day gap in hottest records. That's an acceleration.
Here's a question from Kaz on X, who says, Can I get you to sign my copy of Manifesto at WOMAD?
Yeah, absolutely. Bring a pen in case I don't. But usually I'll be signing somewhere, probably front of stage after we've done our podcast, right?
Yeah, indeed. Well, you normally bring a quill with you, don't you, Dale?
A quill. Yeah, because I don't believe in those plastic biros.
No, yes. There goes Dale Vince with his big feather of joy, as people often say. This from Jan on X says, how can we help Captain Paul Watson get released? And of course, this is reference the anti-whaling activist. We've got to cover the story on this, and plus there's a question. What are your thoughts, Dale?
Yeah, so Paul Watson, I mean, he's a guy he was a founder of Greenpeace. He went on to found Sea Shepherd. I mean, they became legends. The most amazing man, actually, on the planet in terms of anti-whaling, fishery protection, kind of marine life kind of campaigning, but not just campaigning, getting in the way of pirates and illegal fishermen, all that kind of stuff. He spent his life doing it. He's a very impressive man. He's been arrested on his way to Japan to get in the way of some more whaling under some kind of Interpol red notice that his lawyers thought had been dismissed, taken away. Actually, it had been hidden. So when he landed in Denmark, he got arrested. So he's in clink. They're trying to extradite him to Japan, where he could spend the rest of his life in prison. So it's actually quite a serious story.
Sometimes you just have to take a step back and go, hang on, a man could spend the rest of his life in prison to stop industrial scale whale torture. And let's be honest, it is torture.
Yeah, torture and murder for no purpose, right? The Japanese say it's science, but that's to get around the international moratorium on whaling. This stuff doesn't get eaten, and even if it did, it shouldn't be, because it's pretty unhealthy. But I mean, there are parallels, I think, with what just happened a couple of weeks ago in our country. Just Stop Oil protesters getting 5 years for being on a Zoom call, for sake.
Yeah,
I think the good guys right now are facing the most extreme penalties under law that you might imagine for what they've done, which aren't crimes. Whereas the people committing the crimes, the whalers, the fossil fuel companies, they're having a laugh.
Question here from Alan, who says, Dale, I typically agree with everything you say.
Nice. Stop there.
Yes, I was about to say that's a bit disturbing, isn't it? But please try to ban wind turbines with gearboxes. You know that they are unnecessary and inefficient compared to electronically controlled generators. I don't want these noisy gearboxes to be used as negative propaganda by the right wing. Has he got a point, Dale?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've never built a windmill with a gearbox. My first windmill, 1996, was Britain's very first not to have a gearbox. We call them direct drive. And I brought it over from Germany because of all the benefits of direct drive, super quietness, that kind of stuff. And gearboxes back then, they were causing problems for the early wind industry. So look, I'm with you, Alan. I don't know if that many have gearboxes now. Certainly direct drive windmills have become much more normal in the last 20 years.
Question from Bob. How about this for a title for the new series? Where the Wind Blows. I now wake up every morning with what feels like a glimmer of hope.
Me too, but more like bright lights shining in my eyes. We're in a great place. I was just saying, super exciting. The pace that Labour are moving at, the degree to which they're willing to just make big changes. I think we're going to talk in a minute about NIMBYs, for example. Labour are like, guys, we just have to do this, which is incredible. Anyway,
new title, new series, new title.
Yeah, not bad. Let's sling it in the hat.
Well, didn't we say last time, I think we've said this every year, that we should have a sort of Blue Peter-like competition where
we did.
People send in their suggestions. I would imagine quite a lot of them are not for broadcast, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I look forward to reading them, those ones.
Indeed. Well, we've got a couple of WOMAD episodes following this week's episode, and then there's a best of, and then a little bit of a break. It's only for about a week or so, and then we're back. So it needs a new title soon, Dale. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, I'm conscious of that. It's on my to-do list.
You said that like a lawyer.
Yeah, I suddenly felt burdened by that.
That's right, yes. Title, Dale, title. Helena says, Ian, you've been working with Dale now for 5 years on this podcast. What have you learned? All, frankly, nothing at all. I tell you what, I've said this to you many times now. This has been the biggest eye-opener for being able to have information that when I do the radio show, totally separate thing, or TV shows, to have the body of information that we collate on this podcast is absolutely huge, Dale. I mean, and we all learn something from doing it, whether it's people who are writing in questions or just the stories that are out there. And we've been gifted for the last God knows how many years because of the ineptitude of the government in power.
We have. They have been the gift that kept on giving, haven't they? Indeed. Absolutely. Well, I should do more on the radio, I reckon. Like, I know I've visited your show a couple of times for Ask Dale kind of slots, but I think there is actually a need out there in the country for people to have somewhere to go to ask. To me, they might be simple or basic questions, but to other people, they're not. Questions about the whole green economy thing, any aspect of it you like. How does this work? Why does that not work? Why don't we do this? That kind of stuff. I think it would really help to educate the public.
And what I like, and I think we should do the radio phone-in thing more regularly, to be honest, Dale. I think there's really something in that. And, of course, it never disappoints because there's always a question that goes something like this. And you always know when you're in trouble when somebody starts with your surname, not your first name. There's always a question that goes, Vince, what's in it for you?
Yeah.
How much are the Labour Party paying you?
And that kind of stuff.
Subsidies is the other one, isn't it?
How much did Soros give you?
Yes, how much did Soros give you? How the did he get into this equation? How much did he give you, by the way?
Oh, I'm not saying. I'm sworn to secrecy. NDAs or something like that.
Indeed. But they are really useful, those moments. And I think, lots of times, I don't know how many times people, come on with a bit of an attitude towards you or the Green movement. You've come up with an answer to the question they've asked and they've gone away and said, you know what, I didn't know that, so thank you. And ultimately, all of these things are about just that, aren't they? Getting correct information out there rather than bullshit.
No, I think they are. And you remind me, we've experienced that working with the Daily Express as well. The readers getting in touch saying, look, I don't agree with everything you say, for example, but I think you're probably the one person can help me. I need a new heating system and I don't trust the government or whatever it is. And it's quite sweet when that happens, actually. An audience that aren't really in the same kind of, let's say, bubble as I am, which is why I'm there. You can reach them with a bit of honesty.
Indeed. Quick story here. Labour told it will need to defeat net zero NIMBYs to decarbonise Britain. Can they do it, Dale?
Absolutely, because the logic, the economics, everything's on our side, And I mean, Labour have already said they will take on the countryside NIMBYs. The net zero NIMBYs are probably slightly different, aren't they? They're the people that say we can't afford it, we don't need it, it's not man-made, whatever it is, kind of stuff. But, NIMBYs and NIMBYs, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, everything's on our side. So it's absolutely going to happen. People will see the benefits of this green revolution, the green economy. I mean, I think The challenge is it'll probably take more than one term to see the real benefits. Things are being set in train now, like the offshore announcement yesterday, for example. That won't deliver in the first 5 years. There won't be projects running probably as a result of that, but there will in the second 5 years. There are other things that will happen, though. The unbanning of onshore wind, I think we'll see the first project in the ground as a result of that within 18 months, and we'll start to see bills come down and stuff like that.
Final question from Caroline, who says, Dale, if energy prices could be brought down even by 10%, can you imagine the savings for the NHS, let alone the country as a whole? I hope that in building wind farms onshore, there will be sensitivity to nature and the countryside, and it's not a free-for-all. Fair point.
It is a fair point, and I don't doubt that it will be done properly. I think the same standards will be in place, minimum separation distance to housing, getting the sign-off of the RSPB to make sure you're not going to harm bird life and that kind of stuff. All of those protections will still be there. It'd just be that the planning system won't fundamentally stand in the way. And I can imagine the savings. We've actually calculated the savings. There are 2 market changes that we're recommending the government does that could knock £10 billion off our energy bills, and that's about 300 quid per household. Big money. Here it goes. It's coming.
Final word, of course, as we record this, it's a Friday lunchtime, like midday. Tomorrow, we're at WOMAD on the Ecotricity stage. We've done this for a few years now, Dale, and it's always good and big crowds, and it's Q&A style as well as recording it for a podcast as well.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have probably the biggest crowd yet this year.
Looks like.
Yeah, Will was just telling me that on the WOMAD app, something like a couple hundred people have asked for a reminder to come along and see this show, which is about double last year or something like that. And you can imagine as well, post the election result and all that kind of stuff, there's going to be a lot of excitement around the place. We've got another thing going on at WOMAD, worth a quick mention. We're taking our Grid Fairies batteries there, and they're powering the second stage at WOMAD. It'll be the first time that's happened. The organisers are really excited about it. It's all part of our drive to get diesel out of live outdoor events, festivals, gigs, that kind of stuff. And we started at Glastonbury a few weeks ago, and after WOMAD, we're off to the Massive Attack gig on the Downs in Bristol to do the same thing.
Good work. So to repeat all of that, Ecotricity stage, WOMAD on Saturday morning, 10:30 to 11:45, including that big Q&A as well. You also find Dale in the World of Words appearing on a panel session there on Sunday at 12:30 on how to make politicians confront climate change. And it says here, you'll also find him mooching around the site eating vegan chips.
Yeah, and I'm popping off to the big vegan camp out or something like that later on Sunday to have a chat there on stage as well. I don't know where it is, but I hear it's 1.5 hours from WOMAD.
Good work. Dale, we'll speak on the next episode, which will be the live from WOMAD episode.
Which is like tomorrow.
Yes, recording tomorrow. So I'm actually going to see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, actually.
I'll be wearing a hat.
Yeah, because it's been a year, right? I mean, I don't know what you look like anymore.
It's been a year. Yeah, I did bump into you on the station, didn't I, at London Bridge?
Oh, yeah. Spooky.
I thought it was somebody dressed up as you. I thought somebody's dressed up as Dale Vince. And then I thought, no, it is Dale.
It was. Yeah. Mike Graham was there as well. I bumped into all kinds of people. I guess.
Everybody was there.
Yeah, everybody. That's anybody.
Okay.
Nice one.
We'll speak on the next episode. Don't forget, of course, to follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/Dale Vince, and importantly on TikTok too.
I'll see you next tomorrow, Ian.
Zero carbon
East on.